بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Ayatollah Mutahhari rahmatullah alayh has a chapter in his introduction to Nahj al-Balaghah which is about forgetting oneself and losing oneself. He says about 18 years ago, of course this is when he wrote this book. He says 18 years before that he used to give some lectures on the Quran, and then this idea came to his mind. His attention was drawn to this point that the Quran sometimes talks about the fact that you may forget yourself or you may lose yourself. For example, لا تكونوا كالذين نسوا الله فأنساهم أنفسهم. In Surah Hash, Allah said, do not be like the people who forgot God and then God made them forget themselves. Or إن الخاسرين الذين خسروا أنفسهم. The losers are those who have lost themselves. So this concept of self-loss and self-forgetfulness were two topics that he says about 18 years ago came to my mind that the Quran is talking about. And then he said, after that I looked into our sources with these two in my mind, and then I found that actually this is very much present in the hadith also, not only in the Quran, in Irfan, in lots of, sometimes when you don't have a question in mind, then even you read something but you don't notice. But if you have a question in mind, then you will find that there are lots of references. So he says, let us explore this topic and then see what Amir al-Mu'minin says about this. Someone with a philosophical mind may say, how can you forget yourself? Because it means that if you have been forgetting someone else, something else, okay, there is separation. But how can I, with all the attention that I have to myself, and we are constantly thinking about ourselves, how can we forget ourselves? Or how can I lose myself? I can lose my book, I can lose my, key, but how can I lose myself? Because losing something needs a kind of separation, a kind of being distinct. But to lose yourself, what does it mean? To forget yourself, how it's possible? So he says, if someone has some philosophical mind, these questions may come to his or her mind. But after some reflection, it becomes very clear that human beings have very sophisticated mind and also have different layers of self. So please remember two things. Our mind and in general our understanding and awareness is very sophisticated. Second, our self has different layers and dimensions. With respect to the first, you know that we have two types of awareness. This is, I am a little bit expanding on this, so if you don't see it in the book, it's because I am expanding. We have two types of knowledge to begin with. Ilm huduri and ilm husuli. Knowledge by presence and what we can call conceptual knowledge. There are things that we know because they are present for us. What is known is present by itself for the knower. There are things that we know not because they are present. The image, a mental image or a concept of them is present for us. My knowledge of myself is knowledge by presence. Not that when I say I exist. When I say I exist, this is conceptualized. This is ilm husuli. But you have some awareness of yourself. Or for example, when you are happy, when you are sad, when you are fearful, these feelings, you understand them by themselves. But when you say, I am happy, this is different. Or I was happy, this is husuli. And sometimes you may make mistake because the way you interpret that feeling can be sometimes mistaken. So, we have knowledge of ourselves and our faculties and our feelings, or sometimes knowledge of our Creator, knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as ilm huzuri, knowledge by presence. Sometimes our knowledge is conceptual. Then conceptual knowledge also has different types. We have tasawwur, we have tasdeeq. Sometimes it's just a conception, sometimes it is a kind of preposition, a judgment. And then conceptions are sometimes primary, sometimes secondary. There are many different things that our mind is doing. Some people have said, with a little exaggeration, but there is great truth in it, that the whole philosophy, it's exaggerated, but it's truth. The whole philosophy is to understand how mind works. Because our mind is very capable. And of course, also very naughty. Your mind is sometimes going out of control, and like a child who is very naughty, and then parents just have to run after the child because has created a problem at the school, a problem with the neighbor. So your mind keeps working and bringing many things to your attention. In any case, one of the capabilities of human mind is that can observe itself. You have self-observation. How did logic come to existence, the science of logic? Because logic is the way our mind works. If mind works in a productive way, it's logic. With the use of our mind, we manage to articulate the laws of mind. Yes? The same is with many types of sciences which are about the way our mind works, or the way our mind analyzes or puts things together. You can say something or hold a position, then with the same mind you reflect on that and you say this was wrong. You can correct yourself. So there are different dimensions, different types of understanding. Sometimes also we have conscious and unconscious aspects of mind. Sometimes you think you are not thinking about something. You say, I'm thinking about subject A, not knowing that in a subconscious level you are thinking about B as well. And therefore, even some other people tell you, you seem very sad today, you seem concerned. You say, no, I am talking to you. You say, no. Sometimes you don't know, but your face shows that you are thinking about something else. Sometimes even when we are sleeping, we are thinking about other things. And then as soon as we wake up, we say something. Recently, I read something very interesting, that one of our Maraja, Rahmatullah alayh, needed surgery in Mashhad. Needed surgery, and then there was a non-Muslim doctor who was there and was doing the surgery. And he told the nurse or people who were in the hospital, I think it was one of the nurses, that whenever he comes again conscious, he becomes conscious, tell me to come. And when he became conscious, this doctor was very surprised that this Ayatollah started, I think, reading Du'a Abu Hamza or something like this. The very first things that he started saying was Du'a Abu Hamza. And he embraced Islam. The name of the doctor is also there, the name of the marja, everything is there. Thank you. Then they asked him why. He said, because I have been present for the same situation next to many people, even many religious leaders. And when they become conscious, they say things that in their life they have been, thinking about or busy with. So he said the best time to understand what is this person really dedicating his life is to listen to what they say at that time. And this person only talked about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So sometimes when we are even unconscious or we are sleeping, one level of mind is still working. And this is why, sometimes you sleep and when you wake up you are feeling very much rested. Sometimes you sleep, when you wake up you feel even more tired. Because your mind has been very much busy with things. So because of sophistication of our mind and because of different levels of self, there is one level of self that we are like animals. There is one level of self that we are like plants. We have vegetative life. There is one level which we are really human beings. There are different levels. Imagine, just to make it very simple, we have three nafs: nafs nabati, nafs haywani, nafs natiqah. Yeah, three types of souls. Nafs nabati keeps us at the level of plants, like someone who has a vegetative state. After brain death, some people have vegetative life. Then we have animal nafs, which brings not only life but also understanding and voluntary action. Then we have human soul, which has ability for making decisions and understanding universal concepts, reasoning, etc. There are three nafs, three types of soul. Of course, according to Mullah Sadra, these are not separate souls. These are different dimensions of the same soul. النفس في وحدتها كل القوة. So he says it's one unit, but has, so it's like one building with 3 floors. And the foundation is our physical, of course, being, like any other physical object. So we are a physical object, but on top of that, we have vegetative soul, we have animal soul, and we have human soul. Some of us only function at the level of first floor or second floor. We never use the third floor, or rarely we use. Many people just act as an animal. Maybe they look very civilized and very, nice, but if you listen to their reasoning and what gives them reason for life, you see it's something to satisfy their animal desires. Some people function at the third level, at the level of a human being. And then when you are in the highest floor, you can go to the roof and fly, and even become more than human being. Even you can fly higher than angels. Even Jibreel cannot rise to that height. As Jibreel said, لو دنوت أنملة لاحترقت. When the Prophet had ascension and nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ثم دنا فتدلى فكان قاب قوسين أو أدنى. There is this famous saying that Jibreel said, if I had gone anmulatan, means top of the finger, closer, I was burnt. Means it was too much for me. So when we say you lose yourself, what does it mean? You lose the foundation in the sense that you are no longer a physical object? No. You lose vegetative soul? No, unless someone kills himself. You lose animal soul? No, unless someone loses his consciousness. We mean that you are operating at a lower level. You sacrifice your humanity in order to satisfy your animal dimension. This is the problem. Okay? So, it is true that philosophically one subject A cannot stop being A. A cannot lose being A. If A was basit and has only one level and one dimension, could not lose itself. We say salbu shay an nafsih muhalun. You cannot negate something from itself. Yeah, you cannot say A is not A. But this is when A is basit, A is simple. But if A has different dimensions, different parts, then it is possible that one part is missing. When nafs, which is animal soul, takes control and aql is imprisoned, again it's the same person. You don't see two people, but what is happening inside this person is this another story. Who is running this person? Who is in charge of this person? Is this person acting as a true human being, or this person looks like a human being but is driven by animal desires? This is the main thing. So we are not finding any difficulty, and indeed this is adding to our understanding when we come across these two beautiful notions: forgetting yourself or losing yourself. He refers to something that some poets have said, that how can we make mistake between these two selves, or two khud. Khud means self. They say, imagine there is a person who has a land and worked hard to build a house for himself, to improve this land. He spent lots of money, time, energy on building this land, make a house for himself. But when he wanted to go and use this house, he realized that this land, the land belonged to someone else. It was not his land. He cannot use it. So Mawlavi Rumi says, در زمین دیگران خانه مکن. Don't make your house in land of another person or other people. کار خود کن، کار بیگانه مکن. Do your own work, not the work of others. Not in the sense that some people say, okay, I'm doing my own work, I am working for myself, I'm making money for myself. No, not in that sense. Your true self. So if you are just making money and not learning, not getting moral virtues, etc., you are not doing your own work. You are doing something that is not for your true self. Kist bigane. When we say others, strangers, don't work for them, who is a stranger? Tane khakiyeto. Your body. But of course, body is a simple way of saying this. Means your animal soul. Kaz baraye oost ghamnakiyeto. This tane khaki, this body which is from soil, is something that you are always concerned about your body and your bodily needs, your bodily desires. Yeah, our attention, of course, people are different, but great part of attention, or sometimes all attention of people, is about this. تا تو تن را چرب و شیرین می دهی گوهر جان را نیابی فربهی. As long as you are just satisfying desires of your body and you give fatty and sweet food to your body, you are just trying to give delicious food to your body, the jewel which is inside you will not grow. You can grow your body, but neglect your true self. Of course, as we have said before, even giving too much to your body is not good for body even. This is the beauty of harmony in this creation, that even if you want a strong body, you must not give too much fatty and sweet things to your body. In another place he says, ای که در پیکار خود را باخته دیگران را تو ز خود نشناخته. He says, you are the one that in the battle has lost himself, has not been able to understand that the stranger is not himself. So you have lost yourself instead of winning yourself. And then he says, یک زمان تنها بمانی تو ز خلق در غم و اندیشه مانی تا به حق. If at one point you become alone and there is no one to keep you busy, then you would realize, how much you have lost, and you become full of sorrow. Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam says, "Ajibtu liman yunshidu dhallatahu." عجبت لمن ينشد ضالته وقد أضل نفسه فلا يطلبها. I have mentioned this hadith also in self-knowledge. This is in Ghurar al-Hakam, not in Nahj al-Balaghah. Ghurar al-Hakam, which is another collection of sayings of Amir al-Mu'minin. He says, I am surprised, I am astonished, I wonder how someone, when he loses something, he looks for it everywhere. Even if you lose sometime, a coin, you look for it. So if you lose your key, you look for it. But he has lost himself and is not looking for it. So this concept of losing yourself is also reflected in sayings of Amir al-Mu'minin. The concept which is rooted in the Quran but is also reflected here. Then he says, there is something he very quickly has mentioned, but I think it's a very beautiful point. He says, Islamically, we have this idea that if you love something or someone, you will be resurrected. If you love a person, you will be resurrected with that person. If you love even a stone, Man ahabba shay'an hasharahu Allahu ma'ah walau kana hajaran. Even if you love a stone, you will be resurrected with that. Okay? This is very famous. Then he says, on the other hand, we know that on the day of judgment, we have manifestation of our actions and manifestation of our hidden qualities. يَوْمَ تُبْلَى السَّرَائِرِ. Yeah? Or مَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ. You would see your actions, you would see your reality. So how can we put this together? He says, when we put this together, that whatever you love, you will be resurrected with it. And also that Qiyamah is not only, but a lot, it's a matter of manifestation of what you have done and achieved in Dunya. He says, when we put this together, this is the conclusion. That when you love something or someone as your ideal, as end for your life, then you become like that. You somehow internalize that thing, you become like that, and therefore you will be resurrected with that and like that. It's a very beautiful point. So, depending on what is your ideal of life, your reality in dunya changes, and on the day of judgment that will be manifest. So he says, if I only want to get something in my life, for example, power. Some people are thirsty for power. Some people are thirsty for money, whatever. Then you are little by little becoming a type of human being that whose essence is that thing. If it is something above you, it raises you. If it is something lower than you, it degrades you. We may be resurrected as a stone or as a even na'udzu billah, animal, etc. Animals are not bad, but when a human being is rejected as animal is bad. Or as true human beings. Then he mentions the concept of finding yourself, knowing yourself, the whole discussion about ma'rifatun nafs, and how ma'rifatun nafs, knowing yourself, is closely connected to ma'rifatul Rabb. The famous hadith from Rasulullah, man arafa nafsah faqad arafa rabbah. Forgetting Allah makes you forget yourself. لا تكونوا كالذين نسوا الله فأنساهم أنفسهم. So if you forget Allah, you forget yourself. If you know yourself, you have known your Lord. So knowing and forgetting yourself leads to knowing, ignoring and forgetting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there's close connection. Then he mentions this from Nahj al-Balaghah, sermon 220, about dhikr. We had this also before here, and also in introduction to mysticism. إن الله سبحانه وتعالى جعل الذكر جلاء للقلوب. Allah the Almighty has made dhikr polishing for the heart. And then he says تسمع به بعد الوقرة وتبصر به بعد العشوة وتنقاد به بعد المعاندة, which means that with dhikr, with remembrance of Allah, we can hear after being deaf, we can see after being blind, we can be obedient after being rebellious. And then Amir al-Mu'minin says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always in all ages have some people that he whispers to their thinking. Allah whispers, najahum fi fikrihim. Allah whispers to them, inspires them, wa kallamahum fi dhati uqulihim, and speaks to their intellect. Allah speaks to their intellect. And then he ends this discussion, this chapter, with the role of ibadah in finding ourselves. When we are getting close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the moments of deep ibadah, then you can find yourself, your true self. Because your true self is close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you get close to Allah, you find your true self. If you go away from Allah and get busy with dunya, you forget. Because your true self never separates from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's always there. نفخت فيه من روحي. And then he makes some final remarks. One is that there is no conflict in Islam between dunya and akhirah. The problem is in getting dunya your end and akhirah's end, they cannot be together. We can have only one end, and that should be akhirah. Dunya, we can benefit from it, we can use it, we can be very grateful, but not as an end, as a means for akhirah. This is one point. And then he talks about the fact that Akhirah is higher, so should be followed. Dunya is lower, should be followed. Dunya should be at the service of Akhirah, not vice versa. And then he mentions a famous hadith from Imam Hassan alayhi salam. He says, Imam Hassan alayhi salam, before his demise, he said, كن لدنياك كأنك تعيش أبدا وكن لآخرتك كأنك تموت غدا. When it comes to your dunya, act as if you are going to be here forever. When it comes to your akhirah, act as if you are going to die tomorrow. He's mentioned three interpretations for this. Some people say it means that when it comes to dunya, you should not be quick. Take your time, because you are going to be here as if forever. You have plenty of time. But when it comes to Akhirah, be quick, because maybe this is your last day, tomorrow maybe you die. He mentions two interpretations, but the best interpretation, which also has support of many other hadiths, and it's the only one which is actually fitting into Islamic lifestyle, is this one. That when it comes to dunya, you should do things properly, as if you are going to be here forever. Not leave things without planning, without organization, without care. For example, if we say, okay, I am going to be in this world for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, I don't bother about environment. No, you must act as if you are here forever. Yeah? Many times if farmers, think that they are going to die tomorrow, they are not going to make any farm. No one is going to study if they think they are going to die tomorrow. Yeah? So when it comes to dunya, try to plan and do things as if you are going to be here forever. But there is a need for something else. Otherwise, you can then sink in your, worldly plans. But also at the same time, try to work for your akhirah as if you are going to die tomorrow. Overall conclusion would be that when it comes to planning and improving our life, we should be the most efficient people. We should be the most organized people. We should be hard-working people. But at the same time, we do always these things with remembrance of death, with remembrance of Akhirah. There is no problem. I can, make lots of money or lots of, farms, etc., that I am not going to use. But if I can say I do it for my Akhirah, if you can have this intention that this dunya work that I am doing for people to benefit, or I am going to use it for my Akhirah, that's good. But if it is going to be for only your use, you are never going to use this. It's too much for one person. So we don't have any conflict in our understanding between what we should do for dunya and what we should do for akhirah. It's not that either you have to have miserable life in dunya and good life in akhirah, or good life in dunya and miserable life in akhirah. No, we can have good life in both. And then he brings some hadiths that support this understanding. I end this series on introduction to Nahj al-Balaghah by the last hadith that he mentions, which is from Imam Kazim alayhi salam. لَيْسَ مِنَّا مَنْ تَرَكَ دُنْيَاهُ لِدِينِهِ أَوْ تَرَكَ دِينَهُ لِلدُّنْيَا. Imam Kazim alayhi salam said, it's not one of us. Whoever abandons his dunya or her dunya for akhirah, for his religion, deen, or abandons religion for dunya. You should try to take care of your religion, but also take care of your dunya. Both. Not equally, but both have to be taken care of. Dunya, you have to have good position, good condition, be active, be efficient, plan. For your deen, you have to be always thinking, always planning, always working, but one for the service of the other. Dunya for the service of deen, not na'udhu billah, deen for the service of dunya. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us this opportunity to study together this beautiful book by Ayatollah Mutahhari on Nahj al-Balaghah. We pray that Allah would send His salutations to the soul of Ayatollah Mutahhari and all our ulama who passed away, and preserve for us our maraja and ulama, inshallah, and enable us to familiarize more ourselves with the beautiful teachings of Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam as a true and as the closest disciple of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ameen.